morning, JC.
Good morning, guys. Good to be with you.
Go ahead, Dap.
JC, tell our listeners on September the 19th, as of right today, whatever day this is, how many people will be in attendance at the Alabama-Georgia game?
That's a tough question to answer right now. As the days go by, and look, if you really dig and you start reading it, because the media, of course, now they're, covering protest and not talking so much about COVID-19. It seems like we're heading toward a situation where, you're going to have a sizable crowd. Whether that's a capacity crowd or not. I sort of thought, 15,000 tops a couple of months ago, and now I kind of think it'll probably be larger. And I think that, it's just going to kind of depend on how the numbers play out.
We've got a long time, too, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We still have, it's not June 19th yet, so we got, 3 months, 90 days before we have to worry about that particular game. And really a little less than 90 days for the start of the season. But, it's one of those things, too, where there are situations across the country where cases are spiking. But what's interesting to me about it is it seems like every week, they pick 3 states and say, oh, they're spiking here, and they reopened, or they're spiking here, and they reopened. And today it was Arizona, North Carolina, and California. Well, California, as we all know, has been under one of the most ridiculous lockdowns in the entire country. And they're not really fully reopened yet. Arizona opened May 15th, which was kind of a normal time. In North Carolina, they're kicking conventions out of their state because they're not ready to reopen yet either. So, that's my question. Are we going to see these huge spikes in Georgia and Florida and Texas and the states that, said, okay, we're just going to throw caution to the wind and go for it? Are the numbers going to be so overwhelmingly bad there that we go, okay, well, this is not, this is not something that's in the best interest of public health. I'll say this: if I were over 60 years old, I don't think I would go to a college football game this year.
I think that's a good point. I heard a guy from UAB talk about that the other day about people yelling and hollering and rooting for their team, but they're hollering, close to people, even within 6 feet. I think you made a good statement there.
Yeah, I don't. And then look, people are going to revolt against the mask situation a little bit, but I do think in a big crowd like that, you are better served to protect you and others by wearing a mask when you're yelling and screaming, because we have little droplets that come out of our mouths when we're doing it. If I went to a football game and the mask was required for entry, I don't think I'd brush back too hard. Not right now. We haven't eradicated the virus.
Your answers are interesting to me. Your answers are interesting to me. I'm not surprised, but I think people are listening to our show need to listen to that.
Yeah, it's a small price to pay, to have a full crowd at a college football game and to go enjoy the sport we all love. In my opinion, I'm not one of these anti-mask people. I feel like that. Okay, we got to wear a mask to get back to normal for a while. That's fine. And if you look at, Asian countries where, they got a lot more people than we do, they've had these pandemics before and these outbreaks like SARS and other flu-type things that have come out. And, they kind of walk around with masks for a while. And then when it's over, they put the mask away. And then when it comes back, they put the mask back on. And I think that they live life. And everything's fine. So, I don't think that's a huge problem. As long as we can get back to normal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
JC, Roger Goodell. What's your take on Roger Goodell? Is he good for the NFL? Is he encouraging protests now? And I think when the man, like he's the man. for the NFL. When he says, let's do it, this, that, and the other, it's kind of not going to be the thing to do. But wait a minute, it was better when you were against it, and it was controversy. Now when he says it's for it, will it have the same effect? Well, just give me your take on Roger Goodell in this situation.
Well, I think it's just a lot like everybody. I think that we live in an age of rapid reaction and reversal when it comes to issues. And, look, I would never kneel during the national anthem just because that's my personal preference. I'd find other ways to protest, and do it that way. But I never had a problem with Colin Kaepernick doing what he did in terms of, it's the United States of America, and you have every right to do it. And you also have every right, if you're in the stands and you see a player doing it, to boo him. You have every right to cheer him. I don't think we've digressed to the point in society where we're like North Korea, and if you don't do a certain thing a certain way, that you get shamed or lose your job, or shamed into submission publicly, all that. Although I think, some people on both sides of everything on Twitter would like for it to be that way. It's become very totalitarian on that particular social media. But, anytime I think you reverse course that dramatically, it comes across as a little disingenuous. I appreciate what he's trying to say. I appreciate him trying to be a healer during this time. And I appreciate, there's also something to be said sometimes when you take a stand about something and then you do reverse course, to come out and just be honest and say, I was wrong after rethinking it. I mean, that's sort of refreshing. So, do I think that, was that the best way he could have possibly handled it on both ends of the spectrum? No, because I think it's kind of cattywampus, for lack of a better term, when you go from one extreme to another. And the reaction before, I think, was a little extreme it was like that also stamped out free speech a little bit. I'm big on free speech. And, coming back the other way now, it's, you're going to have players that if they don't deal, that they're going to kind of get,
yeah, that's right.
Oh, well, you don't care about this. And so I think that, it's just, like I said, an extreme thing. And, I can kind of see good and bad in it.
Yeah, Richard Sherman's out today, and he's wanting Jerry Jones and other NFL owners to publicly speak on racism. He just says he can make a huge impact with a few words. But I think a lot of these guys now, or maybe when they saw what happened with Drew Brees and even with Dabo to a certain extent, which is, listen to what they say, they were just speaking from their heart. It wasn't any disrespect to anybody, and they just got absolutely torn to shreds. Does that make people scared now to get out and speak? Because I don't care what Jerry Jones says, it'll probably be wrong in a lot of people's eyes.
Well, yeah, then there's certain loud voices out there that it doesn't matter what you say. If you release a carefully crafted statement, that's not enough. And if you go out there and speak from the heart and don't line up with, exactly what they want you to say, that's not going to be enough. I think, though, that I would, if I were Jerry Jones and the other owners, because the owners get vilified quite a bit. And I think that, it would help ease some of that if maybe they released statements and said, we don't stand for racial, like some of the other carefully crafted statements that have come out, and said that, and also said, hey, we don't, whatever our players want to do before the national anthem, that's their right as United States citizens. We do have freedom of speech. We want them to express themselves. I mean, that's really all you can do in this situation. I think if you're the owners, if you're a football coach, whatever, is such a, I thought 1968 would, 8 years before I was born, and I was always under the impression as I grew up through the 90s and kind of a time of, we had some racial incidents like the Rodney King situation. The O.J. trial was very racially charged, I thought. And then to me, though, that was a world away in Los Angeles on the other side of the country. And growing up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, maybe past, I guess, 7th, 8th grade, where we had a controversy about the Rebel mascot at Burns High School. I thought we were kind of all past that. And maybe that's the problem, is that a lot of people did, and there were still some underlying issues there that maybe we all ignored. And so I thought 1968 was a long time ago. But I think that just like then, we're kind of riding a massive time of adjustment. And you just have to go with it. You can't fight it, especially right now. And you have to kind of be more aware and be more empathetic with others and be more understanding, even though you may personally have been understanding and you may not think you need to make an adjustment. I think outwardly, that's something that is going to be necessary to kind of heal everybody and move forward so we can get past all this, because it's as volatile as I've seen in my lifetime. And that saddens me greatly, but I think the way to get through it is to listen probably as much as people speak. Yeah. On both sides. Even if you're not, fired up about the calls or whatever, and even the people that are, kind of leading the protest or whatever, I think listening is what's going to get us all through this. Because I think nowadays with social media and stuff, nobody's interested really in listening. They're more interested in dissecting words on a screen, and I think that's what's unfortunate and what's caused a lot of these issues is that people really do care, but if they don't say it or write something a certain way, to somebody's liking, they get torched.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter, I guess, because it's not ever real accurate. But strength of schedule has been put down by the writers in the SEC. Interesting to me that Arkansas is number 1 in strength of schedule, Vanderbilt 3, I forgot who 2 was. And the weakest schedule in the SEC by these writers is Florida. I'm a kind of a schedule guy when I was coaching. Kind of interesting to me to see that Arkansas, there's a toughest schedule and Florida the weakest. Does that mean Florida is going to win the SEC East?
I don't know. I think it's probably more about their non-conference schedule. I think they just play Florida State, and that's kind of it. Florida State, who knows how good they'll be this year.
Yeah.
But Florida, when you kind of look at it, with that neutral site game at Georgia, there are years where when the LSU game is in Gainesville, that is a pretty favorable schedule because they never have to play at Georgia. Georgia never has to play at Florida, but, so and that game is in the state of Florida, and all that. So I can kind of see where they're coming from. And I saw those rankings. I think they're kind of judging it too based on like how much talent do you have coming back and who do you really have to play. And if you look at Arkansas, they had a terrible year last year. You got a first-year head coach. Especially with their SEC West slate, it gets really, really difficult. And I think that's kind of what the thought process is there. Sometimes, like last year, all season, they said South Carolina had the toughest schedule in the country, and I completely disagreed with that because, you're telling me that South Carolina shouldn't have beaten Missouri or App State or North Carolina. That's to me that was kind of a built-in excuse for what happened. So, I don't know that necessarily. I know that Texas A&M, to me, last year had the toughest schedule in the SEC. And then, it's a little bit lighter this year. They don't really have to go play a lot of they don't have to play Clemson and Georgia on the road. So and Alabama, So I think that's that's good for the Aggies. But, I don't know. I think that Arkansas thing is relative to who Arkansas has coming back, and kind of their non-conference is not as easy as people would think.
Yeah. The guy's going to do a good job recruiting. I think he's a no-name coach, but he's done a good job recruiting at Georgia. And I have a feeling he's going to work his Sandy off. He's already gotten a pretty good quarterback out of Texas, but he's going to do a little bit better, even though nobody talks about him at all. Pittman.
Yeah, I think so, too. He's got a good staff, too. You know, the D coordinator there is Barry Odom, who, when he was at Memphis and Missouri, as a coordinator, he was one of the best in the country. And then Art Briles' son, Kendall Briles, is the OC, and he's very, very creative, as we all know, and can really call plays and be dynamic, and it's not too much of a departure from what Chad Morris was trying to do. So I'm very intrigued by Arkansas this year. You know, do I think they're going to struggle to get to a bowl against that schedule? Yes. But do I think they can surprise some people and not be as bad as they were last year? I mean, when you lose to San Jose State and Western Kentucky at home, you know, and then the year before you lost to North Texas by, 27 at home, you know, you're not going to keep your job in the SEC. I mean, there's just minimum expectations. You know, maybe at Vanderbilt you can do it because Derek Mason lost to UNLV at home by 24 last year, and he's still there. But I think that at Arkansas, you know, you just can't do that. I mean, they were about to lose their program. There were 40,000 people in the stands in a 70,000-seat stadium, and they have great fans. So I think that when you look at kind of who was going to take that job, you know, and who they ended up getting and on the staff and all that, I think it's sneaky good. And we'll kind of see how it unfolds this year and in the years to come as they kind of rebuild that roster and get things going.
JC, will this whole situation, will this have any effect on Clemson and Dabo, or will this kind of blow over and they'll still keep recruiting at such a high level? I know the Gamecock fans hope it causes them some problems.
Yeah, you know, Gamecock fans are just looking for any sort of light at the end of the tunnel with regards to their in-state rivals. It's interesting, you know, because I think, and I got to be careful with what I say here because of, you know, the team I cover and own the site for and all that. I don't want to sound like a fan, but I did grow up in South Carolina, and, you know, there are some, you know, tributes to certain people, certain historical figures that exist really on both campuses, but especially on Clemson, kind of if you go back and read, like, the history of Clemson University and how it was founded and all that, I mean, it's sitting on a former plantation. If you look at kind of who pushed to build Clemson University, you know, some of those guys were you know, bad guys that really, as a South Carolinian, you know, in the year 2020 and someone that grew up kind of beyond all that, I don't think we should be honoring anymore. And one of those is John C. Calhoun, and, you know, one of those is Ben Tillman. And so I think that, you know, when you look at the history of those guys and really any of the guys that were racist or segregationist or slave owners or whoever, you know, I think that it's time to get past all that. I'm a big student of history, and I love studying it. But I don't believe that, and you know, people give the slippery slope argument. Well, what's next? You know, well, you know, go take a look at Germany after World War II. They don't really have big statues for Rommel and Goebbels and Hitler and those guys sitting up there. And I think that when you look at kind of the facts about certain parts of Southern history, you know, and you can kind of dig into exactly what happened. You know, maybe we should take a page out of that and, you know, kind of rethink, you know, this clutching to what was a dark but necessary period in our country, because we're all Americans now. We're not Confederates anymore. You know, that's 140, 50 years ago. So I do think that there are some things at Clemson institutionally that'll probably need to change, but I think that's going to be the case on a lot of campuses around the South, and I think it'll happen relatively quick. As far as Dabo is concerned, I think he'll get through it. I think that the coach that, you know, Danny Pearman and what he said, you know, 3 years ago, I've seen people lose their jobs and stuff with all this for things that happened in 2013. So would it surprise me for them to kind of maybe part ways? No. Do I think that's necessarily something that's, fair completely, considering when it happened? I don't know. I'm not going to make a judgment call on that. But as far as Dabo himself, I think they'll be fine. And I said this on a show last Wednesday in South Carolina. I said, I know people that work, that have gone to, that are affiliated with Clemson University, and Clemson is not a racist place. I mean, I think there are some racist idiots that maybe have gone to school there. I think that there's racist idiots in kind of all walks of life in all 50 states across the country. And it's not just limited to the South, believe me. In fact, it's a little bit better in the South in that regard, just from where I've been all around the world, around the country, and some of the things I've heard and seen. But I don't think that institution in and of itself is racist. And I think that, they can make some slight changes, maybe some naming changes with certain buildings on campus and things like that, which I think a lot of schools are going to have to do. And I think that they'll come out all right. They're supposed to be really, really good this year. I think losing Justin Ross, the receiver, probably knocked them down below Ohio State and a lot of these preseason top 25s. But those are the two best teams in the country, along with Alabama. So, we'll see kind of how it all plays out. But they should be in the running for another championship and, steaming towards another top 5 recruiting class as the season goes on. I think this will kind of blow over with regards specifically to them.
JC, tell everybody about how to find and about your podcast.
JC and Morgan College Football Podcast is rocking and rolling. We got some good interviews up there. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, wherever you find podcasts. You can find JC and Morgan.
Appreciate you, JC.
Thanks, JC. Enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, guys.
That's awesome.